Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm super excited for today's video. It is going to be an update in my No Pan Left Behind, and I'm really excited because I do have 3 palettes out of the 5 that I've been working on that I will be rolling out because I have completed them No Pan Left Behind style. If you've never heard of No Pan Left Behind, essentially I randomly roll in 4 to 5 eyeshadow palettes at any given time to try and complete. And to complete a palette, I have to use every single shade within that palette at least one time. I have been really trying to focus on, like in the past, I would have like 8 palettes open at a time and I would reach for like one shade out of each of the 8 palettes. I've really tried to utilize this project to make me think of each palette as a whole and creating one look just using that palette, and it has been so much fun. I feel like I have gotten to know my eyeshadow palette so much more than just like on the surface level because you know I'm like deeply getting to know my palettes, right? It's like we're dating. But I've had so much fun doing this and I feel like it's made me think more creatively, and I've just like enjoyed using my palettes more, even though I still feel like there's quite a few palettes in my collection that have been neglected and not gotten used. The palettes that I actually have used this year, I feel like I've used them in a more like in a deeper way than in the past, where I was just like, I'll use one shade here, and I wasn't like actually enjoying or like appreciating the palette for what it actually was. I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but if you're interested in seeing what 3 palettes I completed, as well as my progress on the other 2 palettes, which is literally none at all, but then seeing me roll in 3 new palettes to focus on, stay tuned. First, if you have yet to subscribe to my channel and you like project painting content, palette themed content, or just chit chatting about makeup, I'd love for you to consider subscribing before moving on. And other than that, let's jump into the video. Alright you guys, as mentioned in the introduction, I have completed 3 palettes within this project, No Pan Left Behind style, but I have also completed 4 other palettes outside of this project, and I do like to update you on those palettes as well. Those are typically always like new palettes that I brought into my collection, and in order for them to complete the testing process, I also have to No Pan Left Behind each palette. So the 4 others that I've completed outside of this palette, I have the What's Up Beauty Monsoon palette. And I am so impressed with this palette. I have really enjoyed using this. I created a really beautiful like dusty mauvey purpley look. I created a like bronzy look and used sun all over the lid, which is this really beautiful golden green sort of shade. I used the shade Downpour on my nails as a nail polish. Loved that for a blue nail polish. And I've been using the shade Succulent on the waterline quite frequently with other mauve tone looks. And I have just really liked this palette. I really liked the Geodes palette, but I think I like the Desert Monsoon even more from What's Up Beauty. And even though I've completed my like testing process for this palette, I continue to reach into this. So I did complete that. I also finally got around to completing my Natasha Denona Pastel palette. My sister got me this palette for my birthday, and I will say I do like this palette, but it is definitely pastel, especially like some of the matte shades are like very light and pastel. I've created a couple looks that I really enjoyed from this palette, but overall I think I'm going to enjoy having this palette in my collection more for like creating custom Natasha palettes and just grabbing for a couple shades to like pair with other Natasha Denona shades, because looking into this palette as a whole, I just feel lost and confused and like I can't create a full look from this palette. I will say I really do love the shade Limoncello, Zest, and Bubble. I think those are really beautiful shades. I also really like the shade Feather for like a really beautiful like light lavendery purpley mauvey sort of look shade. But this one is officially complete as well. I've also completed the Leathal Cosmetics Wildflower palette. I had so much fun creating looks with this palette, and while this palette does confuse me a little bit as well as I look into it and try and just create a full look just using this palette, I've created a couple looks I've really enjoyed. I really like, just for a simple everyday, I like this shade in the crease and then this all over the lids. I think that's stunning. I also have this really deep purple look that I created with this palette that I absolutely loved. I love this purple matte shade. and I love all of the shimmers. There are some definitely very special shades in this palette, so I'm excited to continue to use that and to have that palette in my collection. And then the fourth and final palette outside of the project is this one from Pat McGrath. I've been really close to having this one as a complete palette for quite some time now, but I still needed to reach for these two matte shades, and I've finally done that. I really do like the Moonlit Seduction palette from Pat McGrath. It is definitely going to be tied, this and Bronze Seduction, for my favorites. I really like Bronze Seduction for like the matte browns as well as the green special shade, but I love this palette for like these 5 shades right here specifically. They're just really sparkly, really special shades. So this one is complete, but I anticipate I will continue to reach for this as well. And then I also just wanted to update you on the eyeshadow pans that I've hit so far in 2023. Realistically, I'd love to hit 23 eyeshadow pans in 2023. I do not know if that is going to happen. I will say I want that, but I also haven't been as focused on hitting pan on eyeshadows this year as I have just using my palettes as a whole, although I did recently start the project Level Up because I was missing panning eyeshadows. So I did hit 2 pans of eyeshadow in the month of July. Up first, I have this one from the NARS Rising Orgasm palette, and I had a little help from dropping this palette, and then I was able to kind of focus on this shade up here where the palette dropped. So these are some of the deepest eyeshadows I have literally ever seen in my life. I would never want to actually like attempt to pan another NARS shade just because I don't know if I've ever seen a shade, a pan this deep. But this was my level 1 palette in my project Level Up, so thank goodness I dropped it. And I promise I did drop it, not on purpose, but I hit a pan in that. If you're interested in catching my project Level Up, I'll leave that linked below. The second pan that I hit was in, if I can get it out here, this single shadow from Menagerie. This is in the shade Moonflower, and it's such a reflective shade. I don't know that you'll even really be able to see the eyeshadow pan, but it is there. I promise it is there. It is a very beautiful little pan there, and I was using this quite a bit as an inner corner highlight. It's a really beautiful like green flippy sort of shade, and I loved it on the inner corner, so I was able to hit a pan there. So now that I've updated you on all of the new eyeshadow pans as well as all the other completed No Pan Left Behind palettes, let's get into my update for the project. So let's start with this one right here. This is the Huda Beauty Nude Medium palette. I did not reach for this at all. I already had a pan in this, so didn't reach for this, not even one time. So need to get better use and focus on this. I do feel like I could create some beautiful August looks with this palette. So this one is obviously still in the project, as well as Sigma Untamed. As of the last update, I had only reached for this shade Hustle right here one time, and I didn't reach for this palette at all in August. I wasn't doing my makeup a ton in August, like big eyeshadow looks, so didn't reach for this one at all either. This one will remain in the project. I anticipate this will be in at least through September, October, but it does scream grungy fall vibes to me, so I feel like it will be a really good palette for the fall. So that brings me to the 3 palettes that are complete. These all 3 rolled in. No, this one did not roll in last update. This is my Nabla Cutie Platinum, and when I open this, you guys, you're gonna be like, girl, what happened to your palette? I ended up, so I used this palette, I used every single shade one time, and I've realized, I don't know if it's because this palette is a little bit older, but these 2 matte shades were just like chalky and patchy, and I did not like the way that they were blending. And I have shades very similar to these 2 mattes other places in my eyeshadow palette collection, so I was like, I think I'm just gonna depot the 3 shades that I really like from this palette. I didn't feel like I needed to keep this gold, and then I'm going to just declutter this palette. So that is what I did. Here are the 3 shades that I depotted from the palette. So we have this really beautiful intense metallic silver. We also have this like taupey bronze shade, and then this almost like gunmetal with like a slight hint of green shade. These 3 shades are absolutely stunning. I love them. They're like metallic foil, like molten foil on your eyes. So beautiful. Definitely wanted to keep those, but honestly kind of excited to just, I don't know, I feel like I've been getting like more and more excited about singles lately, so I'm honestly like excited to just have those 3 depotted and say adios to this, because then I don't have to like think about like having to use these mats anymore. They're gone. So that one is complete, but also rolling out of the project, or also getting decluttered from my collection. And then I have this one from Aether Beauty. This is the Rose Quartz Crystal Quad, and this is what this looks like. And I actually ended up using each shade within this palette 2 times. And this palette, along with the Roen 1111, which is my other palette in this project, kind of made me fall in love with mauve looks again. I was really enjoying the combination of these two, and granted, you can't get a ton of variety from this, but I really like this for just a simple everyday mauve toned look. And really happy that I was able to reach into each of the shades twice, because it was a quad that was much easier. And I anticipate I will reach into this again as we reach the colder winter months, when I like these tones a little bit better. So this one is complete and will be rolling out, as well as my Roen 1111 quad. I love this quad so much, and I feel like I fall in love with it a little bit more every single time I use this. I recently filmed, it was the palettes, like reflecting on all the palettes that I decluttered last year. I was using these two in combination, and I just could not stop staring at my eyes when I was editing the video. I just loved it so much. It was mostly this shade right here, which is my favorite shade in the palette, all over the lid. But I will say that I really like all 4 of these. If you've never tried the Roen palette, like the Roen formula, they are really unique textures, really sparkly, like cream shadows, and they're just so beautiful. They're definitely not going to be subtle on the eyes, but they are so beautiful and just add this really beautiful texture in like a good way, and just this sparkliness to the eyes that it's so beautiful. So with the Roen 1111 quad, I reached into this shade right here 3 total times, this shade 1 time, and then each of these 2 bottom shades 2 total times. This is a palette that got a ton of use out of me the first few months of the years, because it does pair really well with the ABH Sultry palette, which is my Pan That palette for the year. And I just anticipate this will continue to get a ton of use from me, because I love it so much. But it is officially complete within this project. So that means that these 3 palettes will be rolling out, and we will be rolling in 3 new palettes to work on. I pulled out my Tiny Decisions app. I think I'm going to roll in 2 palettes from my summer palette rotation, just because it's August, like the last official month of summer. So I would love to like try and get some extra use, or just, you know, give me some extra motivation to reach for a couple of my summer palettes. And then I'll roll 1 palette for my entire collection. So we're going to start with my summer wheel. I have 20 palettes, and I did film a video about my summer palette rotation. That is where these palettes are coming from. And we get the Oden's Eye Sea Talk palette, which I actually have no pan left behind, because that is a new palette to my collection this year. So should I re-roll? Maybe, because I have already no pan left behind that. So we're going to, I've already completed that. Let's see, what else do we get? We get the, ooh, the ColourPop Lush Life palette. Okay, that'll be a good one. It'll be a good motivation for me to reach for that. I feel like that's like the perfect August palette too, because it's like a little bit like deeper, and I don't know, like the end of summer gives me like sultry, like jungle vibes maybe, like we're going into the Amazon. Let's see, then we get, okay, I was kind of hoping for this, also kind of not, because I feel like it's going to be a challenge, but we get the Natasha Denona Gold palette, which this is a really beautiful palette to take me from summer into fall as well. And I'm excited for an excuse to reach for the Natasha Denona Gold. I was wondering if the Natasha Denona Gold palette would be a good palette to try like the latte makeup trend. I was thinking about that the other day. So I'm actually super excited to work on the Natasha Denona Gold, because I feel like I've been looking for an excuse to reach for that. And then let's go into my wheel with my entire collection. And we are gonna get, I'm a little bit nervous about this. We are gonna get, oh my, how does this happen? Like, how does this actually happen to me? I got ColourPop Lush Life. Out of the 150 palettes on this wheel, how is it that at least we know that clearly the painting universe wants me to work on ColourPop Lush Life. ColourPop Taupe. Okay. Can you tell I'm not as excited about ColourPop Taupe? but that's okay. A good cool toned option. Okay, let me go grab those palettes and I will be right back. All right, you guys, I am back, and up first we have the palette that the Panning Universe clearly really wants me to work on. It's the ColourPop Lush Life palette, and this is what this looks like. I am so excited to work on this. I will say the two shades that make me the most nervous are these two right here, but I'm gonna have some fun with them. I feel like I can have a ton of fun with this palette, and I'm super excited for an extra excuse to reach into this palette. Just honestly looking at this palette makes me so happy. I cannot wait to reach into the shade It's Paradise, as well as Paradise Palm, and honestly Hideaway as well. So I'm excited to see what looks I can create with this palette, and hopefully this will be one of my complete palettes next update, because I feel like this doesn't necessarily scream fall to me, although I will say like some of the like more rich terracottas or oranges definitely could, like if I get through the blues and greens, it could take me into fall, but I would like to complete the palette. Then we have the ColourPop That's Taupe palette, and I don't mind this palette, but I will say I feel like the mattes in this palette are a little bit chalky, a little bit dusty, a little bit hard to blend. I do really like the 4 like shimmer shades. I think they're really beautiful, especially this like Super Shock shade and Snake Eyes. So beautiful. So I really do like this palette for the metallics. I think I'll have a lot of fun with those. And you know, maybe it's time for me to just give this palette another try. Also, we'll see how it goes, but if I'm really hating like every shade except for the matte, or except for the shimmers, maybe it's a sign that I can declutter some of these, or that I can depot the shades that I do like and then declutter this. We'll see. We'll see. I don't want to declutter a palette just to like declutter a palette, but truly if I like am not loving, I mean, I would like to make this palette work, because I feel like cohesively it just works really well together. We'll see what happens. We'll see how it goes. I'm hopeful that I can have this as a rollout too. Perhaps this would pair really well with my sultry palette. That could be a good combo. And then finally, I think this one will give me a bit of a run for my money in terms of like completing it within the month, but I am very, very excited to be rolling in my Natasha Denona Gold palette to be working on to complete. I absolutely adore this palette. It is one of my most prized possessions in my palette collection. This palette just makes me so happy. I also feel like this palette and the Lush Life palette like are kind of giving a little bit of the same energy. Like I feel like with the blues and the greens, they could pair well together. So we'll see what we come up with. We'll see what happens. I'm not super confident that this will be a rollout next update, but at least hopefully I can roll out these 2 ColourPops. I feel like those would be 2 easy ones to bust through in a month, as well as hopefully I can roll out my Huda Medium. It'd be nice to be on like a good track record of rolling 3 palettes out a month. I rolled 3 out last month. That was the first time I rolled 3 out, and then I rolled 3 out this month, although 2 of them are quads. So we'll see what happens, but hopefully we can have 3 rolls. I'm not super confident the Untamed palette will be a rollout by next update, but that is my update for the No Pan Left Behind. These are the 5 eyeshadow palettes that I will be working on to complete. My goal is, do we think I can complete 100 palettes this year? I mean, that would be awesome. It would truly be awesome, but I don't know, because we're only at 29, 30, 29. And we're well over halfway through the year. So we'll see what happens. But that is going to wrap it up for today's video. I would love to know which palette did you most recently No Pan Left Behind. If you do something similar to this, let a girl know in the comments below. Other than that, thank you guys so much for sticking around to watch today's video and for supporting my channel, as you guys always do. I love you guys so much, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye.